This is Coons Ford Terp Talk with Bruce Posner. 60 minutes of Maryland athletics and your phone calls at 410-481-1300. Now, here's Bruce Posner and Terp Talk.
What a big day of sports, or a big week of sports here in Baltimore and Washington. And, of course, we're going to open up tonight. We're certainly going to talk a lot of lacrosse and some Caps hockey with the voice of the Caps and the voice of Big Ten lacrosse, Joe Beninati. And Joe, welcome in tonight.
Guys, it's my pleasure to join you. Let's get this going. It's the best time of the year.
We got a lot to go with. The first thing I have to say, and you expunged me last year when I said the Caps were chokers. Well, they're not chokers anymore. It was a major win. I don't care how you look at it. The fact that they lost that first game as dramatically as they did and then bounced back. Ups for the Caps, up for Barry Trotz, up for Alex Ovechkin, ups for Kuznetsov, Braden Holtby. Who am I leaving out?
Who are you leaving out? I think Lars Eller, who had to step up and play. I think
How about this kid Walker?
The first Australian to ever play in an NHL playoff game. But Joe B., it must mean so much to you. This is Wayne Viener with Bruce Posner on the phone. Joe Beninati. How long have you been the Caps announcer?
I've been here since, 1994, Wayne. And I've seen and lived through a lot of playoff torture, let's just say that. And I can understand why the fan base is so thrilled to get rid of an arch rival in the way they did. Pittsburgh's had scoreboard over Washington for a long, long time, guys. And the relief in the fans, you could see it instantly. I'm hoping it conveys and carries over to the hockey team. But in both instances, in these first two rounds of series, they needed the wake-up call. They lost the first two games of the Columbus series in overtime. That awakened them. They lost game one of the Pittsburgh series after I thought they played a beautiful game for about 45 minutes and just fell asleep for 5 of those. And they've managed to be resilient, full of resolve, incredibly resourceful when necessary, and to get through and win the way they did in Game 6 in Pittsburgh, minus 3 of their top players in their top 6 is from their forward ranks. That's really impressive, and the buy-in defensively is what gets them over the hump in those first 2 rounds of series, and they're going to need that especially against a Tampa team that just flies.
Well, I'm not ready to move on to Tampa yet, but what does it mean to you that Ovechkin doesn't score the goals that wins the game down the stretch? He makes the assist. He's the primary assist on the goal that made it 4-3 the other night, and of course on the Kuznetsov winner.
Right, but he also had the goal that made it 3-3 on the 5th game.
Yeah, but the assists.
Rather.
Yeah. Joe?
This is a player who doesn't care who scores, to be honest with you. I've seen him, I've watched him grow up, guys, and it's kind of amazing in a big brotherly sort of way to see him. I remember him the first day I ever met him at age 19 and 20 when there was just a board set up in Washington, no ice, and I could, standing next to him, could feel the heartbeat out of his chest. Can I go and skate? I'm like, Alex, there's no ice there. This is a game and a sport that he loves to no end, and he celebrates other people's goals just as much, with as much vigor as he will his own, and it does not surprise me at all to see him be a setup man on a game winner for Yevgeny Kuznetsov in Game 6. Those two have worked together beautifully, and now they're going to get Tom Wilson back, so that line will continue to thrive. I'm sure it'll be a handful for Tampa Bay, but Alex just wants to win for his teammates now. I think we've all seen it. He's heard it. He's heard the naysayers. You can't be one of the all-time greats if you don't have a Stanley Cup, Alex, and all the individual trophies mean a great deal to him, but what's most important now at this point in time, at age 32, it's to celebrate with his teammates as champions.
Joe, it's a game that, what I normally recall from a game like this is don't ever say you can't win without some of your best players, because Nick Backstrom didn't play, Burakovsky didn't play, and Tom Wilson didn't play, and there was this injection of speed in that lineup. Was I seeing that correctly? That the team just, maybe they were fresher. I don't know. The Australian kid and the other kids who had to go in. There was some newfound speed in this team.
Right. Boyd comes in, Walker comes in, and then you get a goal from an unlikely source, Alec Chason, who hasn't scored that much, but he's been known as a goal scorer. Joe?
A good finisher, Wayne and Bruce. And here's the thing with Travis Boyd and Nathan Walker, of whom you were speaking. It's terrific when you see the younger players get a chance and not get frozen. There was no deer in headlights look on Nathan Walker's face or Travis Boyd's face. From what I gather, from what I've been told by scouts and coaches, these are two cerebral players. They're heady players. You know, I think Nathan has a little bit more bite to his game. He's the smaller of the two. He'll thump you. He'll get under your skin. He'll agitate. He has terrific speed and a work ethic that never quits. Boyd is a player who sees the game especially well from his center spot, and you know, we needed that. You had to have it without Nick Backstrom. I'm confident there isn't a player on the Caps roster who has more responsibilities on his plate than Nicholas Backstrom. When you miss him, you are missing him in numerous areas, and everybody had to pull up a rung and get in line, and they did it with an injection of speed, but also with, I think, these guys who don't know about the past, who don't want to hear about all of the torturous losses in the playoffs to Pittsburgh or whomever, and just did what they needed to do in a very, very important game. And now all of them have smiles on their faces. I'm hoping they feel a sense of relief and they can really cut it loose against Tampa Bay.
For this season, I know the Caps shed a lot of stars like Williams, who was older, and they let him go, and they let the defenseman go to Las Vegas, who probably could have played a role in this. And when you look at the roster, unlike Boston, who kept Giunta from Montreal, or the Predators, who have a fellow from Hartnell, who they could roll out as an extra skater, why don't the Caps have any of these 12 to 15-year veterans that have been through this war to plug in? How did they end up having to put rookies in?
Salary cap, cost, and all of a sudden, over the years, the players that have developed into all-star level talents are pushing the Caps to be a salary cap constrained team. Sure, I mean, guys, there would be room for Nate Schmidt. There would be room for Shattenkirk and Alsner on this blue line right now. There'd be room for Williams. You'd gladly take Marcus Johansson back at this point in time. You couldn't keep them all. You couldn't keep them all, not with their salary demands and with the cap being where it is. And the economics are improving. The cap's going to rise, and there will be a chance for Washington to bring in more veteran players. But just like everything else, the salaries of the players who become restricted free agents and unrestricted free agents are going to grow, and dynamically so. When you think about John Carlson, John's potentially going to double his salary, and that's going to only put more of a financial constraint on the team. That's why for years now, or at least the last 1, 2, 3 years, guys, we've been talking about now or never. And those last two teams were runaway the best teams in the NHL by far in the regular season, and just didn't get it over the hump in the second round against Pittsburgh. It's a shame they had to meet Pittsburgh in the first two rounds. I can complain about the playoff format from now until the cows come home, but nobody will listen to me. But this year, with, I think, less expectation and on paper a less talented team, isn't it ironic that this is the one that found a way to solve Pittsburgh and push on through?
Yeah, for sure. Let me say one thing, Joe, and it was a little bit upsetting to me. You know, I watch you on Caps TV, you know, all the time. I might go to 4 or 5 games a year, but I watch you a lot. And then all of a sudden, you're not doing the game. It seems to be an injustice not to be able to listen to you call this victory. How does this happen? I mean, it's one of the few sports where at least the home team doesn't have their own broadcaster, you know, on another channel doing the game. How does it happen?
Money. Money. Bruce, when NBC buys the deal that's currently under operation, it was a 10-year deal. I think it was 10 years for a total of $2 billion, which isn't very much by NFL standards, by football standards, but was a lot of money by NHL standards some 8 years ago when they inked it. The one thing that NBC asked for after the first round was exclusivity. And the league, in the position that they were at the time, as a bargaining chip, had to give in. And once the first rounds are through, all of the local rights holders here in Washington, NBC Sports Washington, or you pick your team. If it was the New York Rangers, it'd be MSG or wherever. After the first round, They can't work the games. You can't have play-by-play call of the game. We have the shoulder programming that I'm involved in still, and the Locker's involved, and Alan May and Al Koken, and on and on and on, pre and post, but it's not the same as the game call, and I appreciate your bringing it up. It's a sensitive subject for me. It hurts selfishly, but it's not about me. I want the team to do as well as they can. But yes, there is a part of me that sits there and goes, wow, there's going to be a day when Alex and Nick and Braden hold that Stanley Cup over their head, and I'm not calling the last 15 seconds of that game. I wonder how thrilling it would be. But that's a personal lament. That's nothing. I want the community to celebrate. I want the ownership and the management and the players and coaches to sink their teeth into that. And someday, if it were to happen, if it happens this spring, I'll be thrilled for them. But privately, quietly, yeah, sure. I got into this business to call the biggest of games, and those are the ones. And right now, we're not in that position. But it's all contractual. It's the business of sports. They want. NBC corporate wants Baltimore, Washington, all of the area here. They want all of those local eyeballs on their national games. They paid for the exclusivity, and they have it.
Well, it upsets me, if that makes you feel better, but it upsets a lot of people.
Yeah,
right?
I wish there was a way we could do it, but you often hear that disclaimer, the accounts and descriptions of this event, or blah, 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 and any other rebroadcast. No rebroadcast.
I mean, can you imagine Chuck Thompson not calling an Orioles World Series game? I mean, you could go right down the list, and without Beninati, that's another subject. And
but
I just had to air
think,
it.
guys, you bring up baseball. I don't think the local baseball announcers get to call any of the postseason. I think the postseason goes directly to the Nationals.
Right, on TV, that's right. So when you're sitting there by yourself, maybe on the set waiting for the game to end, do you still do the play-by-play in your head?
Wayne, the only thing that I like to do from an exercise standpoint, from a practice standpoint, the answer to your question is no. I'm not calling the game in my head. But the one thing that I am doing to keep myself sharp, and I'll do this regardless of sport, whether it be a football game that I'm getting ready to call, lacrosse, baseball, basketball, hockey, as soon as the puck touches the player's stick, I want to recognize that name. So in my head, as soon as it gets to Stamkos, I say Stamkos. As soon as it gets to Kucherov, I hopefully say Kucherov. I just want to be able to react on time as the puck arrives so that I'm keeping sharp. That's just an exercise that I learned a long, long time ago. Nobody knows that I'm doing it, but yeah, I'll be sitting there at Capital One Arena, and as soon as the puck hits 44 red, I say Orpik in my name, in my own mind. That's my own mental exercise.
Joe, last year, now we're going to segue into lacrosse a little. Wayne wants to talk hockey for an hour.
Just give me one more.
I'm going to give you one more question.
Okay.
Just wait. But I got to ask Joe. Now, last year, Joe, in our hearts, and probably for the past 2 years, you're a neutral guy in lacrosse, somewhat. I don't think you're a real, you like Maryland, but you like Hopkins, you like all the Big Ten teams. But last year, you kind of knew Maryland was going to win the title. It was just, for guys who really follow it, there was little doubt, just like they should have won the year before, but that's life. Do you feel now, because they've gotten over this hump, and if Pittsburgh would have beaten us, everybody would just about have handed the title to Pittsburgh. But I'm asking you, do you feel now in your heart that the Caps have a great chance to take it to the house?
It's a really well thought out question, because the last 2 years, most everybody would agree with you. The winner of the Pittsburgh-Washington series is likely to be the Stanley Cup champion. The last 2 years, people would say that instantly. This year, not so much. Nashville and Winnipeg, to me, is the most attractive of series, and it's going 7. Tampa Bay and Boston both had more points than, I believe, either the Caps or the Penguins. Those two teams were terrific. I thought Boston was the best team in the NHL in March and in April, and I didn't think it was close. So I don't think it's a slam dunk thought the way it had been the previous 2 years. Everybody thought, whichever team comes out of that big rivalry, Washington and Pittsburgh, going to win the Cup. I don't think that's the same sentiment this time around. I don't.
Well, we'll see. I hope.
And we all forget Vegas. Vegas has made me look silly all year long. Vegas is still in the picture.
And that's the really one that I think is the biggest bugaboo to this whole thing for Maryland, for the Caps, because they're going to end up having to face Marc-Andre Fleury again. And with all that history in
Let's
Pittsburgh.
not look ahead. Let's worry about Tampa.
I'll sign up for that right now, Wayne. I'll sign up for that right now if you're giving it to me.
I'll give it to you, but as Bruce says, it's time for some lacrosse.
All right. Now, Joe, if you don't know, and I know everybody listens to my show knows that Joe is the voice of Big Ten lacrosse along with Mark Dixon. And you guys were really touting at least 3 teams from the Big Ten in the tournament, maybe 4. And then all of a sudden the ACC, including an 8-6 Syracuse, winds up getting 4 teams, and the Big Ten is stuck at 2. How ridiculous is that, Joe?
We thought it was disappointing, and there was definitely, I thought there was room for a third, and at Villanova's expense. I just think the way Villanova's playing at the moment, I thought either Ohio State or Rutgers would beat Villanova straight up at this point in the season. That's usually the way I look at it. I'm not sure if I'm of the same mind as a lot of the other guys who followed the landscape much more closely throughout the season. I always think, okay, if we're on the bubble, who's going to beat the other guy straight up? And I'm not giving Villanova any disrespect. I think there's some injuries there, and there's been a change from throughout the course of the season. But to me, the way Ohio State was performing at the end, and I think Rutgers has been slighted in the past, but I know Ohio State just beat Rutgers. So let's say just from the eye test right now, if you're concerned about the Big Ten, it would have been Ohio State that's got to feel slighted. And I love what Rutgers does. I think they're a really attractive team to watch. They'd be a good draw in that sense. But we were shaking our heads. It just turned out the way the ACC shook out, that all of a sudden there was some bid grabbers, bid snatchers there who snuck in under the wire.
Yeah, for sure. So assess the Terps for me. This is Terp Talk, and we cover the Terps lacrosse like no tomorrow, and but I'd like to hear your opinion. Look, they're number 1 in the country. They're number 1 RPI. Everything points, but it's not like last year in my eyes. It's much more wide open. Do you agree with that?
Yeah, I do. I do think they've done an admirable job replacing Rambo and Heacock and Maltz. You think about that. That's quite a chunk of your offensive push to need to replace, but they just reload. John does a brilliant job of recruiting and managing to get people to come into College Park who can produce. And I love what I see from. It's easy to love what you see from Connor Kelly wherever he's playing, whether it be in a midfield role or attacking from behind the cage as an attackman. I just think he has to be a front runner when it comes to the Tuaraton Award. In the game that I most recently called the Hopkins-Maryland rematch, I didn't think Jared Bernhardt was himself. I didn't think he was at his usual best. But from what I gather and from what I'm told by coaches, and this is a player who's just going to be terrific for another 2 more seasons after this one, I know he'll be back on the beam come this weekend when the NCAA tournament begins. Wisnauskas is an outstanding catch and shooter. I don't know that they have the depth in the second midfield that we would like, but that first midfield, Bubba seems like he's settled right in his freshman year. Rotans is quiet but super effective, and Will Snyder had the big game against Hopkins at Homewood, and it always shows me flashes of an outstanding offensive player. So there's enough depth there. I think at that end of the field, they're good for double digits every time they hit the turf.
Right.
Defensively, I like them too. I like them everywhere. They're the number 1 team for a reason. Really good in the goal, really good on the back end.
Well, certainly. Petromala's done a great job getting this Hopkins team ready, and the way it's set up, Maryland would play Hopkins in the semifinal, which is a shame. All right, that you're going to have 3 games within 5 weeks with the same.
Isn't that incredible?
It's just ridiculous.
Yeah.
I talked to Quint, and Quint said, Maryland playing Hopkins, and then the next week playing them again. All right, the edge really goes to the team that lost because they're so close. And he said, but wouldn't it be smart maybe to have a Big Ten ACC, 4, pick out 5 or 6 games there and let them play each other, which would help seeding more than this repetition of games for the tournament play.
Interesting. interesting, and you've seen it in other sports, but they usually do those challenge matches earlier in the season. It's unusual to see it shake out. I think that's the first time they've ever played on consecutive weekends, if I'm not mistaken.
No, but they played twice in a year.
Mark and I really enjoyed the rematch. And I thought that Hopkins was able to figure some things out offensively that they didn't the week prior when they had the home field advantage. And whatever it is that got into Cole Williams is exactly what you want if you're a Blue Jays fan in this as the tournament approaches.
I think Brock Turnbull might have been more important because he was absolutely incredible.
Yeah, just awesome. And I guess there are so many people who are happy for him because he's persevered through a lot. And you mentioned Quinn Kesnick. He knows just how much scrutiny is always placed upon the Johns Hopkins goalie, and Brock's had to feel a lot of that weight on his chest, and sub 50% save percentage didn't sit well with him, and thank goodness he's bumped that up. And in the last, I'd say, 3 weeks in particular, he's been dynamite. So you know what happens when you have the hot goalie.
Well, we've had it all year in Danny Morris. He's been just fantastic. Not in the last game against Hopkins, but he kept us in the game the week before. He kept us in against Rutgers. He kept us in against Penn State. And probably, if you have to pick a winner, give me the team with the hot goalie in the tournament. And to me, that's the guy who's going to carry that team because there's so many. Connor Kelly's incredible. But there's about 6 guys like Connor Kelly this year.
Yeah. And I just wonder, Connor takes such a beating over the course of a season, and I know that Johns Hopkins wanted to lay the wood to him physically in the 2 matchups. How much is he suffering at this time of the year? They've played a lot of lacrosse. There was a time there, Mark Dixon and I had Maryland at Penn State. The Terps win very, very late on a Wisnausis goal, I think it was, and it just looked like Maryland was ripe for the picking, and finally Ohio State did get them in College Park. I think, obviously your spirits get boosted when you win the big game against the Blue Jays at Homewood, and I think they'll come through after playing the 2 games in the Big Ten tournament just fine, and they'll get rolling again. They're the team in my eyes that until you show me something that's legitimately stand up better than them, I have to think that, touch wood, Terps fans will be celebrating again.
Well, that would be fantastic, but I think we've got the X factor, and that, of course, is John Tillman. Think about his 6 Final Fours in 7 years. Joe, that's
scary.
In today's world, that's almost impossible.
That's scary. That
really
tells you how consistent and how much the players adhere to his direction. And I think that's the other thing too, Bruce. Right? You mentioned John, but think about all the turnover from all the coordinators, right? The coaches who've left to other positions. The first one that comes to mind is Kevin Connery now at Michigan, his defensive coordinator. So it seems like almost each and every year, John is losing a valuable asset from his coaching cabinet to going on to head to a head coaching job, and yet still they keep rolling. It's a real testament to how great a coach he is.
And also the fellow at Georgetown,
Kevin Warren. Keep your eyes on them, Joe.
Right?
When you beat Denver 8-3, keep your eye on that team.
Am I right? Is that Hopkins' first round opponent?
Yes, it is. I mean, Maryland scrimmaged Georgetown early in the year, and I want to tell you, when it was over, I said to Tillman, he said, and we were talking about it, they looked awful good. And look out. If they could pull an upset on Hopkins, they're capable of making a run. But we got to run, and I can't thank you enough for coming on, Joe. Let's hope. I won't put you on the spot with lacrosse because you got to be neutral, but let's hope the Caps make that run. It would be so great for this area. Even in Baltimore, the bars were hopping for the Caps.
No, that's fantastic. Good to know. And even I can tell you, as far as away as San Diego, at this point of the year, everybody wants to get you on for a radio hit or a talk here and there. And I did one yesterday in San Diego. Casual hockey fans, Joe, they want the Caps. They want to see Alex Ovechkin finally do it. I mean, that does me really well, and I appreciate what you're saying, Bruce and Wayne, very much.
Well, you're the perfect guy for us between the Caps and lacrosse. You're the guy. Joe, thanks a lot for coming on. I know Wayne thanks you too, and we'll see you soon. Take care and go Caps.
My pleasure, guys. Have a great night.
All right, this is Bruce Posner. That might be the longest first segment ever.
That was a good first segment.
All right, but how could it not be with Joe Beninati? All right, back in a few minutes here on CBS Sports Radio 1300.
Welcome back to Coons Ford Terp Talk. Call 410-481-1300 now. Once again, here's Bruce Posner.
Welcome back here to segment 2. Dennis is away this week.
But I had a good time at Coons Ford on Saturday.
Sure did. Looked at that Mustang. It was fantastic. And you did some great video. Have you put it up yet, or you haven't finished touching?
I haven't put the finished touches on
the editor chopped it up.
Well, the editor needs
Executive
to
editor.
Executive editor needs to get it from 16 minutes down to 12, so I'm going to need some help. I need to lose 4 minutes, but I got to drive.
All right, then the producer chopped it up.
Everybody's chopping it up. It's a little too long, but I had such a good time. We drove a stick shift Mustang 5-liter with a Level 2 performance pack on it, which included almost racing
Did it
slicks.
seem like you were racing almost?
Oh, yeah. I mean, you want to have a blast at 30 miles an hour? That thing's fun at 30. It's at 40. And you get it up going, and we have the video. We'll put that up on Terp Talk probably later this week. Got to take it for a spin. Got to put some gas in it. God, I love shifting through those gears. The car sounds fantastic. And that's one of the greatest things about you driving that car, and it sounds like you're driving an exotic car. And the base price is only about $40. The one we had was about $54, but what a blast. Oh, it was great, Bruce.
It's like driving a race car. And plus, it's got eyes to end. I mean, it's just that red one.
What does that mean?
Eyes mean that it attracts you. In other words, when you go to a car auction, what I used to do a lot, and Dennis does all the time, you go there, and for some reason, everybody sees the same car. So you could have a 2014 Mustang, and it could be in red and white, but for some reason, everybody sees that red car, and the word is, it's got eyes. All right, and it's like the eyes go to it. And the same car could bring another $1,000 because it's red.
Well, you're probably right that it's sort of Tennessee orange one and the red one, and I would think...
That's why you see so many of those colors in those kind of cars.
Man.
All right.
And Mason said, why don't we get it? I said, because I didn't come here to buy a car, but as I drove it, I want one now. So maybe. Right. You've only bought, what, 42, 43?
40 cars at least. We lost count and probably sent them another 100.
It's just such, everybody there was really helpful. They put on a nice lunch for the customers. The
nice is an understatement. Well, if you ever want to buy a car, buy it Saturday at Coons Ford.
Okay, it was really good.
Crab cakes.
The food was fantastic.
Alaskan king crab legs. All right, let's get on to the subject of today. I woke up this morning. I went to my e-newspaper from the Baltimore Sun, and I'm skimming through it, and I see a hatchet job on our guy, Damon Evans, by Don Marcus.
Yeah, that's true. And Bruce, who usually gets up a little later, when I get a phone call from Bruce before 9 in the morning, my first thing, what's wrong? Right. Yeah. And so, did you see this? I knew instantly what he was talking about because I saw this article late last night. And we have a good relationship with Don Marcus, but he sort of took the wood. I
don't dislike Don for doing it, but I don't think he was fair, and I don't think it was a fair...
Well, go over what it was.
It was a hatchet job on Damon Evans, the guy who we support to be the next athletic director for many reasons, the most of which is that month after month after month goes by, and we don't have an athletic director. It's like all you guys out there that either run a business or manage a business or owns a business. Imagine if your key guy, whether it's you or your top manager, isn't there. He's not there. And right now, Damon is saddled with the interim position, and interim doesn't mean you're the athletic director.
So he's been the interim athletic director for October, November, December, January, February, March, April, and May. It's 8 months of interim, and they are now forming a search committee to go interview.
You're 4 months away. You could be 3-4 months away from. And furthermore, there's a tendency to want to get a guy from Maryland. And I'm all for that. Except a guy's not going to all of a sudden. Who's the guy they want from Oklahoma?
Joe Castiglione, who's a top rated.
From where?
Oklahoma.
Why is he going to leave Oklahoma?
They're only paying him $1.5 million.
Yeah, why?
They paid Kevin Anderson about $425.
Right. Why would this guy leave Oklahoma?
Because he's a Terp. They got Gary Williams that way, and that's the only person that comes to mind.
When you look at Gary Williams, that was years and years and years ago, and he wanted to get in the ACC as well, and he wanted to come to Maryland, and he wasn't making $1.5 million or proportionally at Boston College.
Well, here's the thing that I'll get back to the article. but just overall, they're going to call a search committee. You and I could get a napkin and a pen and put down the 4 or 5 people we interview for Maryland. You don't need to pay somebody $100,000 to make a list of who you would interview, who has Maryland ties, or you think is the next up and coming. There's only 68 D1 teams anyhow. So you look through the list of those and go, we're better than, or we have a job offer. It's either the first guy or their top assistant at 68 schools. This is not, to me, that big a search. And Joe Castiglione's on it. The guy who was at Connecticut, whose name suddenly escapes me when Calhoun was there, that was a Terp.
Jeff Hathaway.
Jeff Hathaway's on that list.
I can't believe I remembered the name.
Well, that's good.
Listen, I don't even know Castiglione, or I don't know what he does or whatever. Obviously, why is he going to leave? Why is he going to leave?
I don't know, but shouldn't you ask him before you go hire somebody else?
Oh, wait a minute. Why is he going to leave?
I don't know, but I'm not the guy. Shouldn't you at least ask him?
We can't pay him $2.5 million. We can't get him that way. All right, they probably already asked him. Maybe they've already talked to him. But you could find out right away. Would you be interested in this job? What do you need a search committee for?
I don't think you need. What are you asking me? I don't think you need a search committee. I think the back of a napkin and a pen.
We got the right guy now. All right. No offense to Joe Castiglione.
Very good there. Right? Or Jeff Hathaway.
We got the right guy, and they're bringing up his baggage. Baggage was a DUI how many years ago?
8
or 10 years ago. Now, look, they got to do their due diligence. They got to check him out. And as long as he checks out that he doesn't have a drinking problem or anything of the like, or there's nothing negative, this guy should be given the job pronto, because he took the Georgia football program from almost obscurity into, semi in the SEC.
SEC, they weren't doing so well. They had a couple 5-6 win seasons, and he sort of reversed
Juiced it
that
back up. Okay,
but he knows big time football. He's been an AD at Missouri. He's been a compliance athletic director, which is a very tough job. He's been the AD at Georgia, and he's been the handpicked assistant AD here, and he's been sort of running the football side of things, and even Kevin Anderson said he's been running the football side.
Let me ask you a question. Does DJ like him?
I think DJ likes him.
Does Missy Mahal like him? These are the names I've heard that really like him a lot.
Missy Mahar's on the search committee, I believe.
She still likes him a lot.
Cheryl Harrison, that we know, is on the search committee.
Right. I understand Turgeon likes him.
And I think Dr. Lowe likes him. I think...
Well, what? I don't understand.
But there are people...
Why did we wait 6 months to hire somebody?
Oh, well, that is Maryland's fault right there. If you were going to let Kevin Anderson go, they should have let him go. I'd actually take exception for having him go on sabbatical for 6 months, because you could have started your search committee then. Let's say that you did want him to go on sabbatical and you knew he wasn't coming back. You could have started the search committee before. I don't see why we have to go a year without an athletic director. We are a premier institution. We are a member of the Big Ten. We are a very well-regarded academic institution. You don't leave the number one seat on, as Dr. Lowe called it, the front porch of your organization.
We lost assistants. We lost that volleyball coach, and you can all laugh and say, well, it's volleyball. You know what? We had the best volleyball coach in the country.
And he goes to Indiana. For money.
All right? Strictly for a few dollars. In other words, and it had to be a little bit more than that, although we'll never know, but he had reasons to himself. But my point is, if you have an athletic, we saw Kevin Anderson operate. In other words, Kevin Anderson was on top, whether you like him or not, he was on top of everything. He was like, and Damon's the same way. In other words, it's the same thing, but Damon's got that football cred. He really does. And that's what Maryland needs. Maryland's never going to need basketball cred, because this is a basketball school. And that's just the way it is. You can tell me whatever you want. It's a basketball school. And people, I'll walk down the street and all they ask me about is Herder, and all they ask me about is Bruno. Is he coming back? And how are these new kids coming in? Nobody asks me a word about football. Nobody asks me a word. Everybody talks in Baltimore, at least, about basketball. And Wayne, I know how much you love football, but until they win, you're not going to get that fever. Right or wrong?
I know.
You're not going to get it.
I know. But I still love them. Of course, I follow the basketball team.
But my point is the fever is with basketball. No,
yes.
I mean, Durkin went 4-8, and nobody was calling for his head. If Turgeon ever went, 10-20,
goodbye.
He wouldn't be here. It's not acceptable in basketball. people are going nuts because we didn't make the tournament last year. And I think Turgeon knows it more than anybody.
I think he does. And you said Herder and Fernando. I think they're both coming back. But what's that have to do? Let's circle back to the topic. Right. Don Marcus wrote a story in the Baltimore Sun that named 2 high-ranking donors to the institution, and both of them had questions about why they...
they said that he's guaranteed to get the job, but why are they just giving it to him?
Why don't they look around?
You can look around forever, all right? Who's the other donor? Wait a minute, I hear Barry Gossett likes Stemming.
I do too. So
Barry Gossett just gave $21.5 million to the university. If you're going to listen to somebody, listen to the guy who gave $21.5 million.
They quoted Tom McMillan, Barry DeRocher, and one other name that escapes me at the moment. I should have it in front of me. The point is, so you would say if you want to look around and get this over with.
Yeah, no, come to a head, get this done within a month. So as football season's starting, and there's 18 million marketing decisions that have to be made, and there's problems because of the new tax laws with the donations and everything, there's going to need to be a hard push on that before it's done. There's so much that's got to happen with Maryland, and there's nobody who's the captain of the ship. That's my problem.
And they need a captain of that ship.
Without question. And we'll leave it at that. When we come back, we have a great guest, a great friend, Dave Pacella, former Terrapin, former Philadelphia Eagle. Oh, we got to ask him about the Eagles winning.
Absolutely. Right. And the Sixers and the Flyers and everything.
But unfortunately, we got some not great news on Charlie Wysocki. We've taken his case. We've helped out. Charlie needs everybody's help. And we're going to tell you about a GoFundMe page and, anything that you can do to help Charlie. Would be great, but Dave's going to explain everything when we get back here on CBS Sports Radio 1300. At Baltimore Neurosurgery and Spine Center, the professionals provide the highest quality care to the patients. My friends over at Baltimore Neurosurgery and Spine Center are fellowship-trained, board-certified neurosurgeons and interventional pain specialists that specialize in treating all spinal and intracranial disorders with more than 20 years of combined experience. The practice is founded by Dr. Ira Goranczyk and his partner Jim Conway. These 2 doctors are perennial Baltimore's top doctors. Not only do they perform complex inpatient procedures, but they also specialize in minimally invasive outpatient surgeries. If you're having problems with your neck or back, call my good friends Dr. Ira Goranczyk and Dr. James Conway at Baltimore Neurosurgery and Spine Center, 410-664-3680. Once again, that's Baltimore's best neurosurgeons at 410-664-3680. Superior Tours continues to serve the Baltimore area with superior price trips to New York, Atlantic City, or wherever your group wants to go. The Comans brothers have only state-of-the-art motor coaches for your riding pleasure. Superior provides same-day service to New York for only $68 round trip or $48 for one-way trips. Atlantic City trips are $38 same-day round trips with great hotel rebates. Call 410-602-1704 and make a reservation with Superior Tours. Since 1915, Atman's Deli has been serving up the best delicatessen in Baltimore on 1019 East Lombard Street. Atman's is open 7 days a week with an incredible menu, including all your delights. Call Elaine for all your catering needs at 410-563-2666. Remember, Atman's is open every Ravens game in the stadium at Section 118. Nothing is better for me than a pastrami sandwich at Atman's Deli. Heck, I'll live with it and make do with the left. Of course not. So why is it so many men with erectile dysfunction throw up their hands, assume it's just a part of getting older, and choose to live with it? The experts at Chesapeake Urology have treatments that can help virtually all men resume a normal sex life. Whether you're 48, 64, or 84, their doctors specialize in ED, and most treatments aren't covered by insurance. Even if you've tried pills without success, the specialists at Chesapeake Urology can show you better treatments. Don't live with something you don't have to. Call Chesapeake Urology at 877-422-8237. That's 877-422-8237. Situated at 1 Olympic Place in Towson, Cunningham's Cafe and Bakery offers handcrafted breakfast, lunch, and coffee in a casual setting. Featuring house-baked breads and pastries, roasted coffees, and locally sourced eggs and produce from Cunningham Farms, the Cafe and Bakery is the perfect spot for a quick meal or snack. Parking is free across the street. Open 7 days a week. Call Cunningham's Bakery and Cafe, 410-339-7750. Trust, honesty, integrity. That's the motto of Offit & Roth, PA, certified public accountants and business consultants. Clients of Offit & Roth get personalized quality service that is beyond comparison. Check out their extensive list of services at www.offitroth.com. Co-founder Alan Roth and his son Michael, a Maryland graduate, have extensive experience working with clients in virtually every industry. Call Offit & Roth at 410-356-6600. It's my pleasure to welcome the Supreme Neighborhood Market Gourmet again to the TerpTalk family. Now under the new ownership of Andy Huffman, Gourmet Again on 3717 Old Court Road continues its tradition of being a specialty food market with all meals, soups, and sandwiches being homemade. My family and all of Northwest Baltimore knows that Gourmet Again is the best market around. Let Gourmet Again cater any party or special occasion that you are having. I absolutely love Gourmet Again. Call 410-484-9393. Gourmet Again is open 7 days a week. Visit them on the web at gourmetagain.com. The phone number, once again, 410-484-9393. That's Gourmet Again.
Tune in to 105.7 The Fan every Tuesday between 8 and 9 a.m. as we recognize one Maryland high school lacrosse player as this week's PNC Achiever, sponsored by PNC Bank.
This is Coons Ford Terp Talk. Call 410-481-1300 now. Once again, here's Bruce Posner.
All right, last year we helped take up the calls for Charlie Wysocki, or maybe it was a couple years ago. Maybe it was 5 years ago. I don't remember, but with Dave Pacella, former Terp, and Mark Sobel, former Terp as well, two wonderful guys who've given their heart and soul to preserve the life and help and do anything they could to help the great Charlie Wysocki. He needs our help again. And let's bring in my good friend, former University of Maryland Terrapin, former Philadelphia Eagle, Dave Pacella. Dave, welcome in.
Hey, Bruce, thanks a lot for having me. I really appreciate it, and that nice warm welcome.
Dave, are you still celebrating the Eagles win?
Oh, I'm a Pennsylvania guy as well. So, and Frank Reich, former Terp coach, and you can't help but pull for him,
So this is Wayne Viener along with Bruce Posner. You were one of the only people that I know that played in the same year for the Federals, and then you went on the NFL. How'd that work out?
Well, I have to tell you, it was pretty challenging. It was something that I didn't realize how hard it would be to play all those football games in one calendar year. And it really took a toll on my body. I actually played four seasons in 2 years. So I played my senior year at the University of Maryland, the fall of '82, played the spring of '83 with the Federals, was off the fall of '83, and then the spring of '84 and the fall of '84. So I doubled up. And I actually think that hurt me, to extend my career.
What was the...
Go ahead. No, I ended up getting injured when I was at the New York Jets, and that was kind of a tough deal there. But it's hard to play that much football in that period of time.
All right, let's discuss the reason why you're calling today, and of course, I hate to say the continued saga of Charlie Wysocki, but it is the continued saga. Tell everybody, because we spent so much time on it a few years back. Right. What's happened to Charlie recently and why we got to help him again?
Well, as a lot of people do know, that Charlie has suffered from severe bipolar and manic depression, and he's been in this fight ever since he left the University of Maryland. He kind of was off the radar for a long period of time, and a lot of us didn't know where he was or what was going on. I reconnected with Charlie about 8 years ago, and then in 2013, we were able to get him down to the University of Maryland to be honored as honorary captain. And then from that point forward, we formed the Charlie Wysocki Benefit Fund with Dr. Margaret Sobel and the late Dave Daddio to help Charlie and assist him with his basic needs. And at that time, he didn't have any teeth to get him teeth. But Charlie needed someone to advocate for him. He didn't have any support from his family, and he was left to his own. And it was very hard for him to manage his own medications, and therefore it just was a vicious cycle of in and out of mental hospitals and personal care facilities, and his quality of life was very poor. When I reconnected with him, he was every bit of 400 pounds. He was in bad shape, no teeth, and was delusional. He couldn't hardly speak coherently. But what was surprising was he still had that spirit, I saw that twinkle in his eye, that he didn't want to give up. He wanted help. And so we were able to do that. The fund...
Dave, real quick, tell everybody about Charlie Wysocki's career at Maryland, how great he was as a Terrapin running back.
Well, Charlie was one of the best running backs in the history of the University of Maryland. I don't have all the stats in front of me, but I know that his sophomore and junior year, he rushed for well over 1,000 yards and was, a candidate at that time before his senior year for the Heisman Trophy. And as a former offensive lineman blocking for Charlie, we took a lot of pride in that. And we ran the I formation, gave him the ball all the time, but he was a hard charger. And it wasn't the fastest guy, but, man, he had a lot of power, a lot of balance, and a lot of heart. And it was hard to bring him down.
A disappointing draft, right? Is that his story, that he expected to be drafted and never was?
Yeah. Well, yeah, a lot of people, there's a lot of still kind of mystery around that of why he didn't get drafted. There was many people that got drafted before him that didn't have the career or the stats that he had. We're not sure why. Till this day, I don't know. But some people felt like that was part of the beginning of his depression. But I think he, in speaking to Charlie, he could overcome that. It was, he was disappointed, but he knew he was good enough to play, and most people felt that he was. And it was really just, unfortunate for Charlie that he had this disease, and it manifested itself very shortly. Actually, it started to manifest itself even when he was preparing to go to the Dallas Cowboys to try out.
Right. So at Maryland, I think he had the single game carry record. Was that 52 carries in a game against Duke?
Right. That's right. I remember that day we were losing at halftime, and we were obviously a better team than Duke. We were much stronger than they were. Hoping the Duke fans don't get too mad out there, but it's true.
We don't have many Duke fans who listen.
No, this is TerpTalk, not Duke.
That's TerpTalk.
Right.
Yeah, you don't have to worry about offending Duke people. We do it all the time.
Good. Well, we should have been crushing them then. That's what it should have been. But we were losing at halftime, and Coach Claiborne said to Charlie, and this is where he got the title of his book from, he said, "Saddle up, Charlie." And we just ran the ball down their throat in the second half and then went on to beat them. But we just kept giving the ball, and it was really funny because I remember that day it was raining the first half, and the sun came out the second half. But they knew our plays, and they knew what was going to go, and they just couldn't stop it. And that was actually a lot of fun that day.
All right, we're running into the last couple of minutes, so tell everybody the website. We're holding back publishing the GoFundMe page until Saturday. That's what Mark asked me to do.
Well, you can actually release it now if you like.
Okay.
That's fine.
Then we'll put it up there, and Charlie needs our help again. And doesn't need, your goals this time are a little bit less. You just have to get something in motion to help him out.
Right. Right. We were very conservative with the funds that we raised last time in a very successful campaign. They stretched from 2013 until now. But he's in need again, and he is hospitalized at the moment as we speak. He has gone into a depressed state. It's something that when people have severe mental illness, sometimes this happens with the medications, and it takes time to get them right. But he's been in for a little bit longer time than we'd like, and there's no scheduled time for him to come out, but we hope that he will be out soon and back this fall, watch a few football games. All
right, we'll have all the information. We're going to have Mark Sobel on Saturday to continue. But, Dave, it's always great talking to you.
Thank you.
Whatever Wayne and myself can do, we're going to do.
Well, we really appreciate it. We really appreciate your help, and it's for a worthy cause, and it has made a big difference in his life.
And I think I was the first contributor on the GoFundMe page or whatever. I think if I did it right. If not, let me know.
All right. Thank you.
All right,
much.
take care, Dave. Thanks a lot for coming on.
All right. Bye-bye.
That was number 60 from the Terps 1982 team, Dave Pacella. So Maryland's opponents play tonight, the possible opponent for Sunday's game. What do you have on that?
On that game, it's Canisius and Robert Morris. All of a sudden, when Maryland gets ready to play a team, I'm hearing about 9 Canadians on Robert Morris.
Yep.
And they got a great goalie, and they beat Penn State. And, there's no free rides in the tournament.
Because it starts at the Sweet 16.
Right. It starts at the Sweet 16, so somebody's not going through number 64.
Right.
All right. So with that, a lot of great games this weekend. We're going to review all that on Saturday. And what the heck, this is the time, Wayne, you and me live for, so we are out of time. This is Bruce Posner. You've been listening to Coons 4 Terp Talk. See you Saturday on the Sports Maven.